Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside A Course in Miracles. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and this podcast is an extension of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. So, this episode and what I want to talk about, it's like so on my heart, and I've been I don't know, a little nervous about bringing it to you. And it's like I have clarity, but don't have clarity in terms of what I want to say to you. One thing I want to share is something that came to me last week. And that is the thought of, are you sharing what you know? And, each of us has an internal knowing that is really rooted in God. And it's a matter of whether we stay connected to that knowing and that truth within us. And I believe that that truth within us puts us on our path of what our purpose is in this life, in this form. And so as that unfolds, are you sharing what you know? And do we have a right to not share what we know? The other thing I want to bring up to you is in A Course in Miracles, this book says that we are all teachers and that we are all ministers of God. So, in sharing what we know, we're sharing what we know, what we know. And what we're sharing that wisdom that someone may need to know and to hear that maybe they forgot. So, are you sharing what you know? And what spiritual truths, even now, there are probably some spiritual truths that you know that maybe you have set aside or you might not necessarily live in, but it's something that you know deep inside of you already. And what do you think is holding you back from sharing those truths? Is it judgment? Sometimes when I love something so much, like A Course in Miracles, I can feel very self-conscious or sensitive about it. And I want to deliver it to you in just the right and perfect way. And I'm bringing that up to say, is there anything that holds you back in a similar way around some type of fear or judgment, or is it going to be received in the way that you intend it to? And I know I don't live in this, but I know that the answer is to just do it, just share it. That's the answer. So, what I want to share with you is a lesson in the course and something related to the lesson. And that lesson is lesson 153. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. And I think this came up for me last week because I was in a little social media beef with someone about something that they did. And I was going in on this person as this person was going in on me. And as this was transpiring, I'm realizing that I'm not living in the space. I'm not being in that space that I feel I am most of the days of my life. Most of the time, I'm in a spiritual space. And not that I don't go into my ego or, I'm not thinking about the course and I'm not consciously thinking of God every second of the day, but subconsciously I am. And I live my life a certain way. And then here I am, I'm in this beef with someone who is um, disparaging me. And so on one hand, I'm going in on this person. And then on the other hand, I'm aware that this person is a child of God also. So I felt very strongly, still do, about how I was going in on this person. But also, I'm thinking, is this what God would have me do? And what is this for? Another thing that comes up in this book is, what is the thing for? So I don't necessarily know what it's for. I have thoughts, but I don't know. I don't know what it was necessarily for. And it's not over. I wouldn't say that, this beef is over, or this disagreement is over. But, this is real life stuff. And how do we incorporate what we discover about God, or learn about God, or what is unfolding within us around God? How do we incorporate that into our everyday life when negative things arise? And so the best answer that I can come up with and think of is to stay connected to God, even when we're doing something that we're not sure about, as far as our spiritual path goes. Be honest with God in that communication. That is another thing that this book really calls for, is to really be close in that relationship, because it's everything we're looking for, all the answers that we want, they are in that relationship with God. And what we ultimately want in love, God wants as well. God doesn't want something that you don't want. He wants the same thing, as long as it's in love. So I read this lesson in my defenselessness, my safety lies, and it had been resonating for me. And then I'm in this beef, and I go and I'm reading it again, and the words are not really sinking in. So that was, I think, on Sunday, or I should say a few days ago, depending on when you receive this. And the next day, I read it again, and it starts sinking in. And then it had me, for some reason, going to the early lessons in the book. First of all, I want to say that in the corner of my page, because I have notes throughout this book over the years, and in the corner of my page of this lesson, in my defenselessness, my safety lies, I wrote, rely not on my own understanding. Rely not on my own understanding. So, what is this lesson about? It is really about seeing the world, seeing circumstances and situations and troubles through a different lens, to see them, to see these things through the eyes of God and not through our own eyes. And it says in here that when we look at things through the eyes of our environment, like let's say we're very unhappy and we're just looking around and we're thinking, oh, I'm just not happy with anything right now. I'm not happy. And we're not looking at it. We're looking at it through our own environment, through our own lens. And that, this book says, is not vision. Jesus in this book says, that's not vision. We're just looking at it through the eyes of how we feel about that situation. And I want to share just something small from this lesson, and then I want to share some of the titles of the other lessons, some of the other lessons in the beginning. But something really clicked for me. I mean, it is all about perception and choosing to change our mind. So I want to read to you a couple of lines from a paragraph in the book. As I said, in this book, All of us are teachers because we teach each other. We learn about ourselves from each other and how we get engage with each other, but we also can just learn from another person. So you are a minister of God, and what are you sharing and teaching someone else, either by your actions or uh, by your words? So it says here, it is the function of God's ministers to help their brothers choose as they have done. It is the function of God's ministers to help their brothers choose as they have done. God has elected all, but few have come to realize his will is but their own. And while you fail to teach what you have learned, salvation waits and darkness holds the world in grim imprisonment. And what that means is that if we're looking through our own lens, then we're imprisoning ourselves and we think we're worrying, we're angry with someone, we think, oh, doom and gloom. But if we look at things through the lens of God, then we are empowered. Then what we might deem is impossible becomes possible. Nor will you learn that light has come to you and your escape has been accomplished. For you will not see the light until you offer it to all your brothers. As they take it from your hands, so will you recognize it as your own. Defenselessness is strength. It testifies to recognition of Christ in you. In the early lessons of this book, they are undoing our conditioning and everything that we have learned in the way of how we think. You'll see a lesson that says, I don't know what anything is for. I don't know what this chair is for. I don't know what this table is for, because we project what it's for by our own experiences and our own thoughts. Maybe that table, I say in the case of me, I just, what do you call it? I place so much value on memories. So my dining room table is the table that has been in my life all of my life. So for me, that table represents family. And for someone else, that table is a table. So we don't know what anything is for, really. So in some of these lessons, we're learning that. And some of the lessons are, I don't know what anything is for. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Above all else, I want to see. I am determined to see. I am determined to see things differently. God is in everything I see. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. I am not a victim of the world I see. These are lessons, the names of lessons. I have invented the world I see. There is another way of looking at the world. I could see peace instead of this. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And one of these lessons, that one in particular, the lesson, the reading, it takes us into how we might feel the opposite of that. So we can work through that feeling and let that feeling just sit with us. And it's some of the things that it calls us to repeat, which is the opposite of God is in my mind, I am very holy, is I see myself as imposed on. I see myself as depressed. I see myself as failing. I see myself as helpless. I see myself as endangered. And then it shifts. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. So then Jesus is trying to get us to understand, no, you are very holy. My holiness envelops everything I see. My holiness blesses the world. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. Have you ever, say, started a job, whatever kind of job? It could be a part-time job, but you're in an office, you're in a store where you work. And when you first arrive, you have a certain uh, feeling or vibe about the place. And then after you become more and more comfortable, you start seeing the environment and the atmosphere differently. And I believe that it's not just that our perception changes, we're there. And so the energy shifts by our presence. The energy is shifting. So that's because your holiness has been added to the environment. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. That's the name of another lesson. And then it also says in italics, there is nothing my holiness cannot do because the power of God lies in it. My holiness is my salvation. I am blessed as a son of God. God goes with me wherever I go. God is my strength. Vision is his gift. God is my strength. Vision is his gift. So if I am looking at something that is bothering me or something I see that I don't like, if I rely not on my own understanding, not on my humanness, not on my ego that just wants this to change and be different, if I rely on the strength of God and I understand that vision is God's gift through me, things will change, things will shift. And this is absolutely true. This is absolutely true. I can say to you that if I did not rely on the love of God, that I would be doomed. I would be doomed. And the beauty of it is that it's only a matter of us being willing to do this. That And I love that this book affirms this because we are human. And so we can and do, as humans, have a little bit of fear in us. And we may go forward in our faith, but there may be that piece of us that may worry, but that's okay. It's just about being on that path of being willing and communicating with God. That's it. That's it. That is how we gain insight. That's how we make a difference in the world. That's how we come to understand what we respectively are called to do. God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. God is the light in which I see. God is the mind with which I think. God is the love in which I forgive. There's a note in italics in this reading that says, I cannot be guilty because I am a son of God. I have already been forgiven. No fear is possible in a mind beloved of God. There is no need to attack because love has forgiven me. God is the love in which I forgive you. And we may think, well, I'm not there yet. I don't really feel this. Repeating this and letting this sit in our spirit, it helps us to shift. We don't have to be at Z. It helps us to shift in that direction. God is the strength in which I trust. God's voice speaks to me throughout the day. There is nothing to fear. And I'm I'm going to stop with last lesson title and share with you what it says here. It says, "There is nothing to fear," states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. It is very easy to recognize this, but it is very difficult for those who want illusions to be true. I should put my glasses on so I can see this more clearly. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you are trusting in your own strength. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God and let his strength take the place of your weakness. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear. And you will be amazed. You will truly, truly be amazed. So I want to ask you some questions to really consider, um, if this rings true and if you want it to ring true. I remember in the past getting into conversations with people about the love of God and people who want to believe in hell. And I'm not here to tell you to believe in hell or to not believe in hell. I'm not here to say that. I do want to share that I don't believe in hell. I believe that we make our own hell. And I've gotten into conversations with people who have gotten upset with me because they believe in hell. And they almost think it's blasphemous, or thought at the time, that I didn't believe in hell. And my thought was, why is it that you don't want to believe in love? And what if love is all there is? What if love is all there is? How would you feel about that? And what is it that has you resistant to believing that God is love and only love? And I'm asking, this is the situation or the thoughts that would come to my mind when I would get into conversations with people about that. But here right now, I'm asking you, related to this, what does it mean to you to see someone through the eyes of God? What changes when you do that? Are there situations where you believe that you need protection in one way or another? But what if your safety, what if your security and your peace of mind lies in surrender, in surrendering it to God? What if that is where you can exhale? And I have to say that thinking this way, it does require, at least for me, it requires practice, because it's so easy sometimes to get triggered by something and to shift into something else and think, no, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. And, we go into our ego mind. And for me personally, something that is very important to me, and I don't have it all figured out. Every one of us is a child of God. And so as a human being, it's important to me to stand up for myself in life. It's very important for me to do that. That's an act of my self-love. And at the same time, it says in here, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So I have this need, but then in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So what do we do with that gap if there's something similar that you feel a way about? But in your defenselessness, your safety lies. So what do you do with that gap? Stay in communication with God. Tell God that you don't know, you don't have it all figured out. Share with God what you do know, but share, share, and don't be in denial about it. Stay connected to your own senses and your own thoughts. And in other words, be mindful of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And things will still unfold. God is not going to abandon you. He's not going to abandon me. So that is it for now. This was such a wonderful unfolding for me of looking at things differently and understanding that the lens that I might look through, I might think, oh, it's a terrible day. It's raining outside. It's pouring outside. It's a terrible day. And I'm looking at that through my lens of uh, how it is outside versus if I look at it through the eyes of God, or if I look at a personal circumstance or situation, or if I look at a room that I'm in. None of those things define us. If we're unhappy about some circumstance that we're in, if you are unhappy about something, that doesn't define you. And if you're looking at yourself and you're beating yourself up about it, you're looking at it through your own lens. And that's not vision, because God is not looking at you in that way, that negative way that you're looking at yourself. He is not. There is nothing to fear, as lesson 48 says. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, let's start healing.